All right, so we'll continue from where we stopped in the last class. We were on this real life example whereby we'll be creating a shopping cart, and then inside of the shopping cart, we'll have in some items. Then we'll be making use of spread operators to actually add up new items into that shopping cart. So I'd like to demonstrate that on the Visual Studio Code, and then what I'll just do is I'll create a variable, which I've already done here, and the variable is going to be an array, and inside of the array is going to have some objects. So the first object is going to be the product, and the product's name rather. So I'll just say product name, and let's assume you're in a place like Market Square or probably ShopRite or any of the gadget stores around. Any gadget store around. I don't know of, let's say, a showroom. So I'm just gonna say a Samsung curved screen, and then would assume the price is about ₦1,000,000. So I'll just say 100,000, and the second item is gonna be we'll say an Asus rug, and let's say it's about 2.5 billion. Okay, so this is my shopping cart currently, and I would like to add a new item. So I'll just declare another variable called new item. We'll assume that this is the new item I want to add into my shopping cart, and it's going to be an object which will mimic the shape of each of the objects inside of this shopping cart. So let's say the product name is going to be an iPhone 17, and the price, I don't know how much is the price of an iPhone 17, but let's just assume it's 1,250,000. So I'll just say 1250000. Okay, so now I would like to use spread operators to add it up. So I'll just say I can go ahead and say, okay, create a variable and just call it maybe something like updated cart, maybe updated cart, and then I would use an array and then use the spread operator to add up my shopping cart. That's everything in the normal shopping cart, and then I'll add up new item. And then by the time I decide to probably console.log, and let's say we console.log the updated cart, we should see that we have successfully merged the old shopping cart with the new shopping cart inside of one array, and we assign that array to a variable called updated cart. So I'll just go ahead and run node app, and when I click on enter, we should see that all three items are now inside of the updated cart. So that means we have successfully used the spread operator to actually add up all these items into the shopping cart. Okay, so I'll be moving on to the next part, which I'll be talking about the rest operator. Now, this is another real life example. So imagine you're actually having a party, and let's even liken it to Nigerian parties. We know that whenever we have Nigerian parties, it is very, very hard for you to say you don't get unexpected guests, especially those that you don't invite. So we're in a country whereby whenever you have a party, there's a lot of uninvited guests actually coming in, except you have a very, very big bouncer and a proper invite check system, because even the people that you gave the invite might end up not coming with their invite. So it's kind of very, very hard for you to tell who is invited and who is not invited. So either ways, Nigerians just prefer to just create a party. Those that are invited can come, and they still make provision for uninvited guests too, so that there won't be shortage of food. So in that situation, we'll be creating, I'll be illustrating that with a function. of illustrating that with a function, and we can just call that host party. Okay, so now let's add up a simple argument. Let's just say party guests. So we want to create a function that greets all our party guests, right? So one at a time. Party guest family. Okay, let's say party guest family. Yeah. So we just do a simple console.log and it says welcome to the party. Here is your food. So let's just assume they are handing over the food and drink. Let's assume they are handing over the food to them as they are welcoming them. So we just say party, guests, family. Okay? So now, let's say in this party, you only invited probably, let's say 3 families. Let's say the Tundes, the Johnsons, and let's say the Samuels. So let's say these are the families you are inviting for your wedding. So that means you are just expecting 3 guests, okay? And they're coming in one at a time. So you can just call in host party and just say host party, and then you just say something like Tundes. So since there's already an apostrophe there, I'll just do a double quotation mark. Yeah, and when I click on Node app, first of all, I like to comment out this old code because I don't want it showing. And then when we do Node, sorry, I just wanted to comment that out, not delete it. So when we do Node app, we should see that it's okay. So there's an error. Host party is not okay. Sorry, spelling error. Yeah, it's supposed to be host party, not host part. Okay, so we do Node app once again, and we should see welcome to the party. Here's your food and drink. Tundes. Okay, so now let's assume 2 guests come inside, or let's say the 3 of them, the 3 invited families come inside, and let's say some uninvited guests also come inside at the same time. So let's say it's not just the Tundes, it's also the Johnsons, right? It's also the Johnsons, and it's also the Samuels, right? And it's also some random uninvited families, let's say Emmanuel's, John's, and Mary's. So currently now in this host party, we initially invited 3 people, right? And then we are having a total of 3 extra people along with Johnson's and Samuel. So let's say all these families arrive at the same time now. If we run the Node app, we're going to see something very, very interesting. So it still says, welcome to the party. Here's food and drinks, Tundes. So it is only making reference to the first person. And this is because we only passed in 1 argument here. Okay? We only passed in 1 argument here. So the only way we can actually accommodate multiple people is, we have 2 ways of doing that. Either we add up multiple arguments to match the number of people that are coming in, or we make use of a REST operator. And like I mentioned earlier on, it's a wedding. You literally cannot tell how many people are coming. You can only predict a number of people that are coming. Especially here in Nigeria, you cannot tell the amount of people that are coming. So what we can do is we can add up a REST operator, comma, and we just say other guests family here. Spelling guest the wrong way. Other guest family, right? So we can then say, okay, console.log, welcome to the party. Here's your food and drinks, other guest family. So this means that the first person will be acknowledged and every other person that falls afterwards will be acknowledged. So if we do the node app now, we should see welcome to the party, and we see Johnson, Samuels, Emmanuels, Johns, and Marys all grouped inside of an array. So I can even go ahead and still get rid of this party guest list family, and once I get rid of it, we should still see it's going to pick every single person that's coming in for the party. So I just do a node app and we have an error. Okay, yes, I'm supposed to comment this out because I deleted the argument. So we just do node app and you see that every single person comes in. So this is the benefit of REST operators. It allows us to be able to, not just this, but in this use case, it allows us to be able to have passing as many arguments as possible rather than hard coding an argument. So that's that about the REST operator. So up next, we'll be moving on to the looping system in ES6. We'll first of all look at how traditional looping goes on in JavaScript and in ES5 JavaScript, and we're also going to look at how we can actually make that happen in the new way, which is the modern JavaScript ES6. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out all of this old code because, I mean, it's old. Then we'll do that with this new example. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to have an array of numbers. Let's say an array of numbers. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at what my cheat sheet is saying. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to come up with a very, very easy example right now. So the usual ES6 way, let's just say an array of fruits, right? And then instead of the array of fruits, we have probably like 4 fruits. Let me add up one more. And let's say orange inside of that. And once that is done, we want to make use of, there are different loops in JavaScript, ES5 JavaScript to be specific. We have loops like the while loop, the do while loop, and also the for loop. And we all know that the for loop is the most popular loop in ES5 JavaScript. So I'll do a for loop and I'll say let's use the old way. Let's just say var, because that's how it was done back then. Var is equal to 0, and then var I is equal to 0. Then we say I is usually less than the fruit dot length, right? And then we say I is increasing on each iteration. So by the time I put in my curly brace, and I'm just going to console.log fruits with the index of I. So it picks out the index and shows it out. So by the time I clear them, first of all, clear my console, because that's one thing I love to do. Just a minute. Let me adjust my seats. Okay. So first thing, I'm going to clear my console, and I'll do a very, very simple node app command. And you should see that it prints out mango, banana, berries, apple, and orange. But there's a very, very simple way of doing this with ES6. Using ES6, we make use of something called the map function. So what do? We first of all pick out let me first put in the subheading using the map function. Okay, so I didn't spell my using well, so I'll just go ahead and adjust that right away. So what we would do is we'd say fruit.map, right? So now inside of this, it usually has a callback function. And this callback function usually is an arrow function, right? So it's going to be like this now. It usually has a callback function. Now, this callback function usually has an argument. The argument is up to you to decide. That argument serves as a key, okay, to expose the values to you. So now, usually the way programmers usually do it, they actually make use of either maybe they call the arguments usually maybe data. They call it data, or they call it the singular value of the name of the array. So the singular value of fruits is fruits. So we can use fruits, or we can decide to use maybe data. But here, let's just use fruits. And then they just do a simple console.log fruit, right? So this key represents each of these items here. And by the time we do a node app now, you should see that we have, okay, mango, banana, berries. I think we have another fruit array declared up there. Okay, it's not declared. So why do we have more than what we are supposed to have? Okay, yes, that's because we didn't console.log this first for loop. So let's console.log that. Then let me first of all clear my console, and then I'll do the node app once again. By the time I do that, you see that we have just 5 items there. Okay. Now, let's do another example. This time around, just a little bit calculative. We'll do an array of 1 to 10. So I'm tired of, I don't want to be using var. Let's use let. We do numbers, and it's going to be 1 to 10, right? Okay. Just a minute. Okay. So now the plan now is we want to use another ES6 method or function. And now what I want to do is I would like to loop through this array and produce all of the even numbers, right? So I'll just do a for loop, and we'll do a let I is equal to to 0, and then we say I. And please, just in case this all of this looks confusing, you need to brush up your foundation of JavaScript then. Okay. Then we do I is increasing, and then instead of it, we do an if statement. We say if the number, if numbers, and then we put in the index of I, and we say modulus 2 is equal to 0, and to console.log, we'll console.log the numbers, right? So we just say numbers I. That's what we want to do. So we just do a node app now. But then we do node app, they said number is not defined. It's supposed to be numbers, not number. So let's do node app. Okay, so you see we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so that means we have successfully showed out all of the words even numbers. Okay, so now what we will do is we would make use of something called the filter next. This is an ES6 function or method that actually allows you to filter out items, okay, from an array or probably an object. So we can then just say, we'll first of all just we'll pick out where we want to filter. See what I did? Can you imagine? I said, let's equal to numbers. Let me get rid of that. That was a mistake. So, okay, sorry about that. So now we'll be using something called the filter to pick out the even numbers from this numbers array. So it's very, very simple. What we just need to do, we just need to do numbers, pick out whatever you want to filter from. We do numbers, and we do dot map. Now, when we do dot map, it's going to be like the map what am I doing? It's not even dot map. It's going to be dot filter. Okay. Now it's going to be just like the way you have. What did they call it? The way you had the the map. Okay. But this time around, we are doing a what? A filter. So now it usually takes in an argument, usually the singular value, or it could be data. So we say numbers, okay? So we now say we can go ahead and use if statements here, or we can just use a very, very simple, straightforward filter technique. I just say where numbers instant modulus 2 is equal to what? 0. Can you see? Now, what this means is that it could be, we could have done this in a curly brace, but remember when I showed you earlier on that whenever you are dealing with a single line of code in ES6, you don't need to add all of that curly brace then. So now I'll just comment this out. So now I'll comment this out, and now we need to find a way to print this out. So there's no other way we will print it out, because if we say we want to console.log, we don't know what to call it. So we have to assign it to a variable. So we just do a const, and we just say filtered, or just say even numbers, right? And we do equal to, and we do even numbers. Okay, and then we have this guy. So by the time we do a node app, again, we should see that there's an error, funny enough. So let's see what the error is. It's supposed to be, rather than, if you see now, the error is that we called numbers here, and we're calling numbers here, and we're calling numbers here. It's supposed to be a singular version. So we say number, and here it's going to be number 2. So when we clear this console first of all, and then we do a node app, it should work. Another error. Numbers.filter. Okay, we commented out the numbers array. Now let's do a clear again, and we do node app. And then it works. It works perfectly. Okay. So now that's how filter works, right? So now the assignment for this is learn how to make use of other modern ES6 functions, and to be submitted in the next class. Okay. Now that's that. So we go on to this. Now, with the help of ES6, you can actually import files. By import files, I mean have another JavaScript file, probably have a function inside of that JavaScript file, or a variable or anything, and still be able to make use of that item, of that specific function in another JavaScript file. And it's possible in ES5 too, and it's also possible in ES6. So I'd like to demonstrate how it is done in ES5, then I'll also demonstrate how it is done in ES6. ES6 is way easier than the way it is done in ES5. So now I'll just go ahead and create a new JavaScript file, and I'll just call it maths.js. Now instead of maths.js, I'll just create a simple ES5 function, and I'm just going to give it 2 arguments, A and B, and it's supposed to have a name though. So let's say add, okay, a function to add 2 numbers. So it's going to be add, and we just put in a normal function, and then we say console.log. Let's first of all declare a variable. So we just say var. The way it's done in ES5, we say var sum is equal to A plus B, and then we console.log. We say the sum of A and B. Okay, so we want to make it more dynamic, so we do the ES5 way of concatenation. And then when we do this, we have our function. So now, the way it is done here, we need to export it as a module. That's in ES5, so we need to do module.export. and then we call in the name of what we want to export, right? So we say add, or better say, I think we can just do module.export add. Okay. So now we are exporting this function add as a module. So inside of my ES5, my other file, I would like to make use of that function. So first of all, let me comment out this and let's try to make use of that function. So what we'll do is we'll now do a require. We do var, then let's say we just call it maths. I will say equal to require it. We'll require maths.js. That's that file. Okay. So once we require it from maths as maths, we declare the variable called maths, and we are requiring this file called maths.js. So now, in order for us to make use of that function, we need to do the name of the file, which is maths, and then we say dot add, which is that exported function. I will say 5 and 10. Let's say 5 and 10, for example. And let's do our node app. It said add is not a function. Okay, add is not a function. So this is what we'll do. We'll export it this way. Let's do add. Okay, let's call it capital letter A, add, representing this add here. So we do it like this. So now this time around, let's change this to the capital letter add. It's not because I changed it as capital letter, it's because what I did was that I redefined it, exporting it as what an object. I'm saying that this add is going to represent this function add. So let's try that again now. Let's do node app, and then you see the sum of 5 and 5 is what? 15. So it works. So now let's do a little change. How would we write this function in ES6? It's very simple. We just do const add, and then we put in an arrow function, which is going to be let a and b be this, and with console.log this. So this is how it's done in ES6. So I'll just comment out the old way, and then we'll do not a module.export, but we just put export in front of this here. We just say export this guy like this. Very, very simple. No need for all this module.export. So when we come here, we then do import rather than require. So we now say import, then we destructure it. We pick out what we want to import. We want to import that function called add from maths.js. And by the time I do my calculation, I'll just say add 5, let's say 15. Then we do node app, and we should see that we have the answer here. So it's very, very much simple. You can go ahead and do more practice on your own just to ensure that you understand it perfectly. And that's that for this class. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great time.